Good evening, and well, as always, a very, very warm welcome to you here on the Open Door Show from Property CEO. My name is Richie Clapson. You know that, it says that at the bottom of the screen. Of course, a lot of you already know us anyway. And I'm here this week on our last show before the summer break with Mr. Ian Child. He's graced us with his presence. He's come back. Ian, welcome. Say hello to everyone.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back. What can I say?
Now, those of you who remember last week on the show, I said that I was actually bidding to take the show over myself, and I needed 10,000 signatories on a petition to say actually that we didn't want Ian back on the show and it's only me. Guess how many signatories I got sent in? None. You lot are useless. You're supposed to send in 10,000. I could have done this show on my own. But anyway, I can't. Look, it's great to have you here. And as always, over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of property, and that's particularly small scale property development. Isn't that right, Mr. Child?
Certainly is. As always, we're going to be talking to some of the movers and shakers out there in the world of property who can give us a bit of an inside track on what's going on in the world, and also hopefully shining a bit of a spotlight on areas where we think we might have a bit of an opportunity for new developers to take a look at.
Good stuff. Above all, though, as always, it's a bit of fun. Within these four walls for these 45 minutes, let's have a bit of fun because life is far too short not to. Please put any comments in the chat box. I see a few comments coming in already. Pop your stuff in the chat box, and any questions that you've got would be very welcome. What have we got coming up tonight, Ian?
Well, it's all about the money. So obtaining funds to develop property needs to be simple and quick. But of course, the question is, how easy is it in reality? So we are joined this week by a very special guest, in fact, a return visit from Mr. Rory O'Mara, who's the founder and CEO of Closed Bridging Finance, a very specialist broker and lending company. And Rory and his team work with a lot of property people, both landlords and developers, and their goal is to get deals done quickly and make life as easy as possible for us. So it'd be very interesting to find out what he has to say about that, and also about the market at large.
Good stuff. And Ian's going to be doing a bit of news. I know you all missed that last week. So Ian's going to be primed and ready. Ian, get ready for your news. Let me just give a couple of shouts out and see who is on. Roma's on. Good evening, Roma. Paulette's on. Lorraine's on. Andrew's on. Ramika's on. Gabriella's on. Stephen's on. Adir's on. Adam's on. Adam says, good evening. Welcome. Missed Ian last week. Adam, thanks very much, you traitor. How unbelievable. You should have signed on those petitions. Chris says, fantastic to be here. Looking forward to listening to Rory. I saw him last year. It was March 21 that Rory was back on the show. Harjinder says, good to be here. Looking forward to tonight's show. Have a few questions. Harjinder, pop them in the chat box and we would try and do our best to answer those. And Charlotte says, I thought she said happy face. It's just happy to be here. Happy to be here. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm pleased you're happy to be here. Oh, and Paul says, looking forward to it. Well, looking forward to it as well, Paul. So are you looking forward to the news? Anyone want the news? Give us a wave, make sure you can hear and see us, and give us a wave equally if you'd like to hear the news. At least we get some waves. Okay, okay, a few people want to hear the news. So, Ian, what's the latest news in the world of property?
News. Okay, so we've got a few things going on. This has got a bit of a governmental slant to it, so apologies for that if you've had enough of all the shenanigans that are going on in that neck of the woods. I'm going to kick off with the latest housing secretary, who's managed to keep his job for a few weeks now. He has intervened in something that's been going on in central London. They've been looking permitted development rights. They've got countrywide in England, but local councils do have an opportunity, if they don't like them, to use Article 4, thing called Article 4 directions, to basically derail them. And that had been something that had been done by one of the in central London. Westminster City Council tried to put a blanket Article 4 across, and the housing secretary has said no, you can't do that. You can't do a blanket one. You can target very specific areas, but it just goes to show, I think, and demonstrate that kind of direction of travel from government, which is they want to be able to get permitted development rights actually being used and taken advantage of, and councils that try and basically retain control are going to get short shrift, because the housing secretary does have the right to basically overrule them. So I thought that was quite interesting and shows a direction of travel. So good on Mr. Clark. Second one relating to the government was, well, it was about I guess it's about the leadership race between Truss and Sunak. Hasn't been a great deal of news coming from either camp on the housing crisis or planning or anything else. But there was something from Liz Truss, who said that she has pledged to scrap what she called Whitehall-inspired Stalinist housing targets. I hadn't come across those before, but she is in favour of tax cuts and deregulation to encourage firms to build new homes. And she said she would amend the Levelling Up Bill to replace centralised targets with tax cuts and reduced red tape in what she calls opportunity zones, whatever they are, to make it easier and quicker for developers to build on brownfield land in those areas. So not a great deal of debate about housing in the leadership race, but what there is looks quite positive when it comes to brownfield redevelopment and, of course, permitted development rights. And then the final one is another government announcement. The government's been a little bit hamstrung at the moment, fairly obviously, because the new housing team has just gone in following the sacking and the resignation of Gove and others. But of course, it's now in a bit of limbo because there isn't, they don't know who the new boss is going to be, and therefore perhaps they might all get replaced on the 5th of September. But what they have managed to do is announce a new nitrate mitigation scheme and it's going to be issuing some guidance to unblock housing consents. So for those of you that are aware, there has been an issue for a little while now with on the environmental side, where planning applications have been in limbo because of some of the environmental concerns about nitrates. Certain councils across the country have basically made it very difficult for development to take place because of that issue. That's now been recognised. Developers, sounds like they're going to be charged a tax. Money solves everything, doesn't it? But there'll be some sort of almost like, I guess, similar to carbon offsetting, where developers will pay money and that will offset the nitrate element. And we can expect new guidance to come in over the summer, apparently. So the government has been, well, busy, but yeah, that is, hold on. And that's the news. Okay.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ian, thank you very much. Excellent. I do notice my internet connection has gone slightly slower. I'm going to turn my camera off in 2 seconds and just reset that. So just bear with me a second. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce our guest. In fact, no, I'm going to do that straight away now. Ian, just feel for 2 seconds because I'm actually just turned my camera off and I've got to reset my connection. So I know I'm still here.
Fantastic. That's good. Do you want to talk us through it, or do you want me to? I could hum something, or.
Well filled, Ian. Well filled. I am back. I am back with you with the connection.
I was just about to go full. Yeah, no, never mind.
Okay. Tonight's guest, as Ian's already said, is the wonderful Rory O'Mara, great friend of us here at Property CEO. Known Rory for some time. He was back with us in March 21. It was show 47 he was back on, and I would say back by popular demand, but I mean, in fact, we didn't have any demand for him to come back, to be fair, but so we thought we'd bring him back anyway because we were waiting for the demand to come through, and we waited and waited, and we didn't get any. Well, in fact, actually, I think one of Rory's family members wrote in, but we disqualified that. But Rory is a wonderful finance person. He's one of those people out there that when you deal with his business, you're dealing with Rory. And I think that's so important for me, dealing with people. It's a people business. And he's a guy that's got a can-do attitude and can get things done. So hopefully after that big build-up, Rory will be pleased to join us. Rory, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Rory, do you want to turn your camera on for us, please? Can you turn your camera on? Excellent. Rory's there with a Property CEO mug. Look at that. Hey. And what's nice, Rory, welcome to the show. What's nice is you've got a bit of branding of Property CEO, but none of your own branding. What's going on there, Rory?
Yeah, we've had a technical glitch here, chap. Something went horribly wrong. Where's the, where is it? It should be here, the backdrop. But we all know it's closebridgingfinance.com. We
all do. Rory, people can't forget you. But actually, Rory, if you go back and listen to show 47 in March 21, you actually look at the quality and admire the detail and the effort that's gone into the backdrop that you didn't bother with this evening. But Rory, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you, Ian. It's always a pleasure to meet you guys and to share knowledge with your audience.
Excellent. Rory, do you want to, for those that don't know you, those that do, perhaps just introduce yourself and what your company's about? And Roy, could you just give us a few? I mean, we talked about getting cash fast is a big important thing for people. If you want to do a deal, it's not just getting the money, it's been able to actually make sure that it follows through. And as I said in a massive build-up I gave you just before you came on, it's actually when you deal with the people that can move fast and are passionate about it and make things happen, that's so important. Maybe you could give us a little bit of an insight to how we do things fast, how we should do things fast, and what we do wrong, and maybe just a little bit of a view of what's going on in the market.
Okay, Richie, I can do that, but I think I lost your audio there. So hopefully you can still hear me.
We can hear you, Rory. Go for it.
Okay, great. So closed bridging finance, who are we? What do we do? I sold my IT business 16 years ago, set up closed bridging finance. Back in the day when you could do essentially no money down buying a property, you had a closed bridge or a daylight bridge, and we lend you money for an hour, and we moved way on from that. So instead of lending money for an hour, we might lend you money for up to a year. And we have funded hundreds and hundreds of projects over the years, lots of HMOs, for example, because landlords wanted to get into HMOs, developments, and we've been broking now for probably about 5 to 6 years. What do we look at? Everything and anything. If it's profitable, does it make sense? So let's get to, I guess, the meat and potatoes of it. How do you get a deal over the line? Can it be funded? So I'm speaking to lots of investors right now. There's a lot of projects. There's projects I'm funding and projects I'm broking. And let's talk about, say, the brokered deals, because I don't call the shots if I work with the lender. And it's really simple things like, let's follow the process. You contact me, you pitch the deal has to stack. So you need to know your numbers. Have you got your development appraisal? Do you understand all your costings? How many square feet or square meters is the site? What's the acquisition cost? Total acquisition costs, including stamp duty, etc. What are the build costs? Are they reasonable? You know, if you think you can do a build at £100 a square foot, please show me how you can do £100 a square foot, because those days are long gone now. I'm working with investors where they're getting quotes from contractors at £2,300 per square meter to £2,800 a square meter on new build. So you'd need to know your numbers, and then we'll get some indicative terms. And that's for you to go, look, yes, let's run with it. You have to have, obviously, some of your own funding. Then we get into the minutiae of paperwork, and you just need to be prepared. With just, for example, your ID, certified ID, proof of residence, stuff that's up to date within the last 3 months. And if you fill in an application form, you've got to fill in every field, because if it doesn't, the lender basically bounces it back, and that will add to delays. And what would normally happen then, you know, you'd have an application principal, you pay for the valuation to be done, the process starts, the valuation gets done, does it stack or not? If it's a development appraisal, I'm working on one now where we've got 2 properties. One is additional security, it's in Scotland. So we need that deal to stack to release the equity to go towards funding the deposit and the get-go money for the conversion. The client's converting an office into 5 flats. And one of the problems we had, the original costings, which were estimates for the works, were exactly that, estimates.
Yeah.
The cost, after it had been actually costed, came in 57% higher. Because if you were given an indication of cost 6 months ago, that absolutely is not reflective of what the figures would be today. So it's just little things like making sure, okay, what's your track record and experience? Have you actually put together a 1 or a 2-page CV with an example of some of the projects that you've worked on? Have you got your bank statements? Can you prove where your money's coming from? So it's all those little simple things based around admin. But if you get that bit right, it can go very, very quickly. So that's
contrary to that. If you get it wrong, it goes very, very slowly, I guess is what you're going to tell us.
It absolutely does. I've got one now with a client. We've had a complicated project, which is just basically the investor bought a hotel, but thought it was an Airbnb business. It's not, it's a hotel. And funding a hotel is buying a business. Now, we have worked away with a lender because of the use class. The use class is amazingly a C3, which is a dwelling house, and not C1. So we have a lender who will happily fund a holiday let. 10 grand needs to be spent to refurb the kitchen. But she's out of the country, and the application form has not been filled in 100%. So I can't do anything with it until I've got the missing information. Now the thing, here's what's happening, guys. So where are we now? The 28th of July, rates are going up. And we have got a locked in rate for her with this particular lender where you can pay a very modest fee albeit I appreciate this is buy to let and not development, but it's
Yep.
part of what she does. For a modest fee, we can secure her rate for 120 days, but we need to get the paperwork in, and we can't submit the paperwork because it's not complete. And I know it sounds trivial, but those are all the little things that make a big difference to you moving the deal forward. And so you work with your broker, just to make sure, what do I need? Make sure it's all beautifully indexed, so everything's in a package that goes, here you go. So I know, yeah, so that's one example. Lenders have a massive appetite to lend. I went to a recent trade show with the NACFB, speaking to one of the main lenders I know. I said, how many bridging companies do you think there are? He said, we think there are 365.
Wow.
We think.
Well, you got one for each day then.
You have.
So if you don't like Rory today, you can use someone else tomorrow. It's entirely up to you, folks.
Yeah, come back in another year. And so,
Yeah.
so there's a race to the bottom on price. But let me tell you, folks, this is never about price, because you'll always buy cheap. What you need to know is, one is the lender got the capacity to do the deal, and does the deal stack? Because it's easy to get terms, but then if the value doesn't stack, so it's not always about price. And I have found, certainly for some term lenders, they can be very picky. If you were funding an HMO, for example, appreciate, we had one recently, I lent a client funds to buy a probate property. So if you think about it, go, I want to get going. He wanted to add a double rear story extension. The lender who quoted wanted a full structural survey. We went, you don't need, I said, let me come and have a look at it. You're going to knock it down and you'll get planning. Guess what? He knocked it down, we got planning, turned it into a 6-bed HMO. It's near Worthing. It looks fantastic. The value on that now is over 600,000, 54K a year in rental income, pulled 75, 85,000 pounds out of the project. One of the term lenders turned up, and the property is below the road, which is on a hill, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's 100 feet above. They refused to fund it. The value just gave it a nil value. And that was because, I won't name the lender, but that lender can be incredibly choosy about the types of projects. And what you would have done is, I didn't arrange that funding, but I would have said, make sure your broker really understands, because I wouldn't go to the cheapest lender. I'd go to a lender who isn't fussy, which means you might have to pay a little bit more. And I think the same could apply when you're looking at bridging as well.
Brilliant. I think that's absolutely right, Roy. I mean, a number of people I speak to, and I hear this. I mean, here at propertyCEO, you know, we only talk to people that we trust in the industry, and those who know there's other people. Rory's often on this show, and we give him a little plug out in the background. And Rory's been off when we've had other funding brokers on. And there's good funders, there's good brokers in this country that you can deal with, that you know are going to look after you. And all of those people that I know always say it's not about price. If you want to go and get the cheapest deal you can get, go and get one, because it won't necessarily be me. But you want someone to look after you. And I think the important thing is, if the proverbial hits the fan and there's a problem, you want a broker and a funder that's on your side who can help you get out of those problems. So really important to deal with people that you trust. Rory, are you open for a few questions? There's some questions already firing in the chat box. Are you up for a few questions?
Yeah, far away.
Ian, what have you got? What can we? Let's get a challenging question for Rory to start with. Ian, what's the first one?
A really challenging one. Okay, there's one here from Sadie. Good evening, Sadie, who says, good evening. I have heard that at the moment lending is really difficult to get. What is your view on this? What do you make of that one, Rory?
Wow, is lending difficult? So it depends. What are we looking at? If we're looking at buy-to-lets, lenders have money. There is a massive challenge to get the money out of the door. I think the challenge is to get the deals done in terms of time frame, but the lenders want to lend if it's the right security. Now here's a little sidetrack. Go to Rightmove, pick any town, search for 3-bed houses, and I'll pretty much guarantee you 80 to 85% of all of those deals are in sold STC, subject to contract. I think a lot of them are going to fall out of bed in the coming months. One, you can't get the mortgage because for whatever reason, you just can't get the mortgage. Two, they're probably, the asking price is crazy, it's overvalued. And I think some of those will fall out of bed. So that's one reason why you might not get funding. If we're looking at bridging deals stack. There are so many bridging lenders, but the deal's got to make sense. If the deal doesn't stack, you won't get it funded. So you have to be confident in your numbers in terms of, I'm doing one, literally we just had it in today, clients buying a flat. it needs no work, it's been refurbed, but the person who sold it, I still don't know why he sold it, because all he had to do was to extend the lease. And he sold it at auction with a short lease. And the lease extension cost £8,000. So I said, I'll bridge that all day long. I've had my valuer do a desktop valuation. It's come back, I'm happy with it. I'll fund it, we'll know a term lender will fund it. If we get into development funding, well, you need a track record, you do need some experience, and your entire appraisal, that pack has to stack. So when you're getting into things like your build costs, which we talked about earlier, are they right? If you think it's £100 a square foot, I'd suggest that might be light. And therefore you might struggle to get funding if the numbers don't work. And your GDVs, your gross development values, if they're way off beam and your rate per square foot or per square meter on end sales value is nothing like the recent sold comparables, not asking, again, you might get chipped on value there, which means you get chipped potentially on the funding. But there's money there, no shortage of lenders who want to lend.
Fantastic. Rory, thank you. Sadie, I hope that answers your question. Richie.
I've got a great one in from Gary, Rory. Gary says, I won't read out Gary's surname, which we never do anyway, but definitely won't read out Gary's, because Gary says, if my net worth position is not that strong, in brackets, since the divorce, how do I best position myself to raise commercial funding when I'm new to development? So when we talk about students that are new to development, we talk about, and you talk about track record, about surrounding yourself. You're the CEO of a business and you surround yourself with a full professional team and a project manager that's going to deliver this project for you. You're effectively just controlling it overall. So obviously Gary could build his team in that way, but his net worth position is not very strong because he's had to give it all away to his ex. What would you say to that?
Well, I think the first thing, it comes down to, well, number one, what's the deal? We need to understand the project. If the project makes sense, then theoretically the project should be fundable. So then we're looking at, okay, who's in your team? And just as you say, Richie, it probably you may have to forego some of the equity, and that might be worth bringing someone in who might have some funds or additional security that could be offered and additional skills. Because I think the things I picked up there for Gary, if you're new to this, then lenders aren't too, it depends what sort of project you're working on. I funded for a client, say 12, 14 months ago, bought a restaurant that went under in Wiltshire, really simple conversion into a 2-bed cottage. You go, yippity skips, what's so big about it? What's so big about it is I said, I will work with you, you get this deal done, he made 50K. Guess what we're just about to sign off now? A new build development where he is the developer, but he's got a contractor on a JCT contract, fixed price build. I'm quite happy to fund it. I have a monitoring surveyor act for me. He's got the funds to put in to make up the shortfall that he needs, but we're happy with the way the deal's been done. Now, we wouldn't have funded that deal until we did the first deal. So sometimes it's baby steps and you build up to it. But you can bring expertise into your team, your power team, and therefore they may have some of the skills and some funding which could plug the gap. Because if the deal stacks, then people will invest.
I love the term yippity skips. I think that's one I'm gonna use in future. So Gary, yippity skips for you, my friend. You know, as Rory says, it's is that your own phrase, yippity skips, or is that a common phrase?
I think I just made that one up, Richie.
Have you heard that before, Ian? Yippity skips?
I haven't. It's a new one. I've made a note. I'm going to use it more often.
Yeah, yippity skips. Okay, so Gary, the key thing is, and Rory said it a couple of times, you talked about, I think, the Sadie's thing, it's about the deal, Gary, okay? If you've got a really strong deal, as Rory said, we can find a way of funding it. Maybe you've got to give a bit of equity away if your net worth position is not strong. Maybe you've got to bring a business partner in to do something with you who's got strong net worth. But the bottom line, have a cracking deal, know your numbers, and you're likely to get the money. Ian, what's next?
We've got one here from William. Good evening, William, who asks, for inexperienced developers, what do lenders look for? So I guess that goes sort of covers a bit of a theme, but yeah, how can you make yourself look good when it comes to getting your deals out in front of people like you and people like obviously the lenders, Rory?
Yeah, so without wishing to repeat myself,
go on, say yippity skips again, just one more time for me.
This is the last one, yippity skips.
Fantastic.
The deal has to stack. But what is the deal? So if you're a complete novice and let's say you've not built a buy-to-let portfolio, you've worked in the corporate world, and you wake up one day and go, you know what, I've had enough working in IT, I'm going to go and become a developer, and you've got no experience, I think you're going to struggle. I really do, because you don't know what you're doing. So you would go about probably building a business. I'd get some training, understand how to do it, and I'd have to bring people in. Pardon?
Well, get some training. Well said, Rory. Good point.
Absolutely. You'd have to, and then you'd start bringing people into your team. So you'd go to propertyCEO to learn the bit that you need to learn. It always does come back to, though, if the deal's a good deal, we can get it funded. I've got a funder that I work with who will do 100% funding, but you have to have a proven track record. If you haven't got it, I won't waste my time with them. But your money in the deal, zip, nothing, not a penny. They've funded all. They'll fund up to 10 mil in cost, typically mid-market housing. But you can be the developer and or the contractor, and providing the numbers stack, they're looking at typically 26-27% margin on GDV pre-finance. They'll fund it all. They own the site. There's a joint venture agreement in place with them and you the developer and the contractor. You develop it out. They charge for the funds that get drawn down akin to bridging. And then when the site is sold, it's not build to hold, it's build to sell. The profit share is 50-50 split. Now, you might go, well, that's not a great deal. We go, well, if you haven't got any money, guess what? And you've got £1 in the deal, I'd say it's a pretty good deal. So it is doable, but you need that power team around you. But if you're brand new, I'd say start with something small. You know, maybe convert some houses, whether you create flats, studios, etc., and then slowly build up and get 2 or 3 under your belt.
Fantastic.
I hope that helps.
William, I hope that helps. Richie, what we got next?
I think that's good. I mean, I just pick up on Rory's point there, Ian, and for everyone that's listening, you know, when you look at that and you go, it's a 50-50 split, and I was going to make, 400,000, but I've got to give half away. Well, you can make life-changing amounts of money and do a split with someone else. And as Rory said, maybe that just gets you that experience. It gets you on the ladder, gets you that track record. And maybe you want to go again with those people and do another deal. And so you can get into development without any money. Again, it's about the deal. It's about the deal. Okay, let's pick up Sarah's. Sarah's got a question here. I like this question, Sarah. So good evening, Sarah. Welcome to the show. Sarah says, where do you think? Let me start again. Where do you think, Rory, the best deals would be for conversion? Shops, offices, also the question mark, so it could be etc. Also associated with this, which area do you have the most appetite to fund? So she's asking where you think the best deals are, and as a funder, as a broker, where is your appetite in what sort of projects in terms of development projects?
Hi, Sarah. Great question. Not an easy one to answer, because the projects that I have funded or the projects I've arranged funding for, they are a mixed bag of everything. Office to resi deals we've done. I've got one in Scotland we're doing right now. It's a great deal. It works. That's an office to resi conversion. Client managed to control the asset under an option agreement, paid a consideration every month, got the planning, I've got all the funding arranged for it. We're just at that, well, it's arranged, we're just getting the valuations done. Could it be shops with uppers? We funded a fair number of those myself over the years. It comes back to, does the deal stack? In terms of location, there are deals everywhere. And often I'll meet people, I live in Winchester, people say there are no deals around. Well, there's a guy I know in my village who's a developer. He develops pretty much within 5 minutes from the farm that he owns. And people go, there are no deals. I go, well, I've tripped over so many multi-million-pound deals, and they're all within spitting distance. You have to, you almost have to get out on your push bike or on your feet. And I think that is, you can find corner plots, you can find deals. I don't know if he's on there's a site that I'm working on now with a client. Very briefly, found a garden plot, agreed a price. Let's say it's in Dorset with the owners. Let's say I'll pay you $655. Put in for planning. got the planning agreed, and was allowed to immediately sell the house, and did it almost within 2 to 3 weeks. It completed today. So he now owns the plot of land, including all costs, let's call it 40 grand. The GDV, the gross development value on what he's going to build, around 800K. Now the build costs now have absolutely risen, and he's done a handful of projects. And you go, well, you can't find projects in the south. Well, you can if you look.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one example to anywhere in the UK, and it is a mixed bag of garden plots. It could be office to resi. It could be shops potentially with uppers. It really is get out there, network, speak to people. But I walk, phenomenal number of miles every day, and you just see what's going on even in your own village. You think, I didn't know that was there, and that's where you think you can find deals.
They are. Sarah, top tip, what I would do is I suggest you find out where Rory lives and go on his walk with him. He walks miles every day. So if you're up for it, Sarah, you can walk around with him and he'll point out the land development. And do you know, at that point about being close to home, Rory, I was talking to a student of ours literally earlier this week who's casting his net, he said, far and wide to look for properties. And he said, you know what? He said, Dan, he said, I've just found one literally in my village. Never knew it was there. And he sent it in and he went, this is a really good deal, total deal, under permitted developments, really nice conversion, quite high value area. And he said, I didn't even bother looking in my village because I thought there'd be nothing, it was too expensive. So yeah, network, get out, immerse yourself in the industry. Brilliant. Ian, let's see if we can get a few more in.
For sure. We've got one here from Jen. Good evening, Jen, who asks, what influence has the war in Ukraine had on the development money market? Thank you. And I guess perhaps as a follow-on to that, Rory, maybe an overview of the market direction of travel in general. I think you kind of alluded to it a little early on, but perhaps a bit more detail.
Okay. Yeah, the money market. So your cost of money, you have to follow what happens in America. So yesterday, the Fed met a 75 basis point rate increase. We will probably see that here. I think last month they also had a 75 basis point rate increase. They've got a target that they're aiming for because they want to reduce inflation. And I think we will find we've had, I think, is it 3 or 4 25 basis point rate increases. I think that will have an impact on the buy-to-let market, because if your cost of money keeps increasing, although I appreciate rents are rising, you will reach a point where you would question your return. So that's for buy-to-let. For development, for bridging, that's an interesting market, because you have to look at in the round, well, where does the money come from? Pre-COVID, if you wanted a safe investment, you could put your money in a German bond and the yield was negative. So just imagine, here's 10 grand and we'll give you 9,980 back. You go, why would I do that? It was safe. American bonds now, a 10-year treasury bond was yielding around 3%, which means the physical value of the bond has dropped. I think bond prices dropped roughly 15 to 20%. So if you're looking for a safe haven, the reason why you've got hundreds of bridging companies, they borrow money from funds. It could be family offices, hedge funds. They're sat on, I met someone at an event recently, he had 8 lots of 500 million that he was allocating. They are quite happy to invest in property. Why? The gearing is relatively low, probably geared at maybe 60% or thereabout, 60, 65%. It's a low risk investment. So I still think that the market will continue to fund these projects. You have to understand the fundamentals, supply, demand. We can't provide enough new housing. And if you speak to any letting agent, you've got 30, 40 people chasing a rental flat or a rental house. And I can't see that change. And that's down to the idiotic policies from George Osborne when he changed your ability to claim mortgage interest rate relief. Funny enough, thousands of landlords offloaded their stock. I think RICS came out with a survey they did last week. They reckon 50,000 rental homes will leave the market, and they won't become rental homes. They'll just become resi homes, which is nice. And that will then push the availability. So supply demand, there isn't enough supply. There's lots of demand. Lenders will want to lend. with regards to the war in Ukraine, it's incredibly sad, but business keeps going and banks need to make money and they'll lend. That's my spin on it.
Brilliant. No, thank you, Rory. Jin, that's the answer to your question. Hope that helps. Richie, what else we got?
I've got one here from Gabriella. She said, I heard someone suggest recently, and you also seem to mention it tonight, that that you should be thinking of building out your own projects. I think you talked about teaming up with a contractor. What do you think that is a good idea? What's your, I got an opinion on that. What do you think, Rory? Do you think first-time developers should become their own contractors?
Probably not, because I don't think you've got the experience. I would say that's incredibly risky. Very risky, actually. Do you know what you're doing? I know of somebody in my village actually who pretty much did that. I can't say, but let's just put it this way: if you have a specification that's European and you use plumbing that's not European, you get a disconnect between an English sink and a non-English sink. How's that going to pan? How's that going to work for you? So I would always want to use a contractor, use a JCT contract. Guess what? You hire a project manager, hire all the right people, never be afraid to pay for the expertise, because in the long term, you may not make as much, but you want to be covered. So I wouldn't want to be my own contractor. No way. You don't know what you're doing.
Gabriella,
Ian, what do you think? Ian, what do you guys think?
Absolutely no way. I mean, and I do know a few people out there who have educated people and have suggested, oh, that's the way to go. It definitely is not. I mean, first of all, contracting, you don't make a huge amount of money. Okay, the margins in contracting are very tight. I've run a construction company for my sins for a period of time, but we won't go there, or else I get all bitter and twisted again. So the margins are very tight. It's not a great business model to be in. And again, you don't know what you're doing. And actually, this is about, for us, if you want to get into development, I want you to be rich in time, not necessarily money, but in time. And you start running a construction company, you will not be. Okay, if you're a developer and you're a CEO, it's highly leveraged. Get someone else to do it. As Rory says, it's a JCT contract, box it up over there, fixed price, lump sum, pay for it, pay for it. Don't get involved going down the contracting route. Otherwise, you've got to get all the contracting resources in. You've got all those headaches 24/7. You don't need it, and you don't have the experience. You will fall flat on your face. So, Gabriella, it's a definite no. And if you do that, Gabriella, are you listening? If you do that, Gabriella, we, myself, Rory, and Ian will be round in force. Now, that is a threat, Gabriella. Is a threat. I know we're not allowed to do that, but it is a threat, and this is recorded. Ian, what's next?
Well, that's handy then, isn't it? Well, I'm still intrigued as to, I mean, it is literally all happening in Rory's village, isn't it? It must be his development central.
I want to go on that walk. Sarah's emailed in. Rory, Sarah's emailed in, or not emailed in, so put in the chat box. Sarah's put in the chat box, what time should I meet Rory for his walk?
6:03 every day.
6:03, Sarah, be there or be square.
Be there. Yeah.
Excellent. We've got a question here from Robert. Good evening, Robert. Where has it gone? No, it's gone. It was here a second ago. If I'm doing a development, there it is. Yeah, put my glasses on. How does the money, if I'm doing a development, how does the money get controlled in terms of where I spend it? Surely the funder doesn't give it to me all at once. Isn't that a lovely thought?
What a lovely idea, Robert, but no, it doesn't work that way. So as part of your appraisal and the pack that you would submit to us, there'll be a schedule and cost of works. Ideally, the contractor would give you a Gantt chart as well, so you can see a visual representation of all of the works and the time frame for the build or the conversion, whatever you're doing. So I've got one now. Actually, we're just about to start the works, which is a conversion of an old swimming pool, which has got a structure around it, and converting that into 3 holiday lets.
Is that in your village?
That one, unfortunately, is not. That's Devon-Dorset border.
Okay.
So I have a monitoring surveyor who'll act for me. I think it's a build over 7 months from memory. The money will be drawn down in equal amounts over that 7-month period. You could, for example, pay for the money to be drawn bi-weekly, but bearing in mind you have to pay the monitoring surveyor's fee. But normally the monitoring surveyor is checking what's been done compared to what you said you would do. How does that marry up with all the costings and the bills? The funds get released. and you just keep going until the project finishes. But yeah, no, they wouldn't give you. It's rare you get all the money up front. I have one exception to that because I've got another project we're just about to work on with a client where they've got a large property they own unencumbered with no debt. So let's say it's worth 1.5 million and they're building a property for 400,000. It's regulated because they want to, they own one property they live in. They may move into the other one. So we can get a regulated loan. It's most likely going to be a bridging loan. And because the original asset's worth 1.5 million, they would probably will get the terms in the next 24 hours. They might get the 400,000 all in one go, or it might come in a couple of tranches. Again, depending on how the deal is put together, will depend on how the funding, the cost of funds works. But you wouldn't normally get development money all up front for you to sit on. It just come in phases.
Fantastic. But to be fair, Robert, great try. Love the idea, the reality, unfortunately, somewhat different. Richie, what else we got?
I think, Robert, if you get that money, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go and spend it on a new car. And we're not having that, Robert. Okay, it's not happening. Last question, because we always wrap up by 1:45. And the last question is a good one. It's in from Petra. So, Petra, good evening to you. I like this one, Rory. I know there's a lot of other questions in the chat box. I do apologise we're not going to get through those. But Petra says, what are the biggest mistakes that you think new developers make? Give us your top 3 biggest mistakes that new developers make then, Rory.
Sometimes I think it's not in any particular order, but I guess over-egging the GDV. You know, do you really understand what the GDV is and believing perhaps what the local agent might tell you? Whereas do the research, actually get the proven comparables based on sold units in that area. So 1, GDV. 2, probably underestimating costs. You've got to get all your costs listed. And I have seen when I get appraisals come through, I had one recently, and it was an estimate for works, not the actual costings. And if you went to page 4, there were a few exclusions. And I went, what does remove rock mean? Yeah, how much does it cost to remove said rock? What is the rock? And the client goes, oh, that won't be a problem. No, that is a problem. Everything must be costed, because I don't know what the scope of the work is. So really understanding the scope of the works and actually understanding all your cost commitments, understanding, and also cash flow. Do you have a cash flow forecast? Have you actually worked through the physical flow of money through the project? Because more often, whether, let's say it was on a bridging loan with some monies being released as well, or it's a conversion, you normally will have to pay for the works up front. The monitoring surveyor will come out and observe what you've done and then sign off what the release will be. So you need the cash to get going. Have you factored that into your numbers? And sometimes some investors don't do that.
Okay, so was that 3? I think we're on 2, weren't we?
Yeah, there was 3. I think sometimes being massively over optimistic because you just believe you're in your own echo chamber. So you just believe what you believe and you go, okay, well, can you go and validate it with a third party? Yeah.
And just in terms of the cash flow, folks, if you're listening and understanding, and we talked about earlier, don't do your own contracting. If you've got the right contractor, the right JCT contract, you've got the right format, you know, and you get this set up right, they will fund those tranches, and then you'll better line up your drawdowns from your banks to match that. So it's all entirely possible to do these things. Rory, I think we've run out of time. We always like to finish at 1:45. Have you enjoyed yourself, Rory?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm so pleased people wrote in and said, could he come back again? So thank you.
Loads of them. Yeah, well, I think I say a member of your family. Maybe if you do come back next time, Rory, you can make a bit more effort with the background to get that nice background on.
Yeah, I understand we might be moving to different technology, so perhaps, yes, I'll get my act together. Apologies for letting you down, folks, with the branding. In case you didn't know,
let us down, Rory.
It's closebridgingfinance.com.
What's the best place? What's the best rate for people to contact you?
Actually, go to the website. You can do that, or you can just pick up the phone and call me on 01962 885 927.
Can you just say that again? Grab a pen and paper. Rory, give you a phone number to contact him. Obviously, go to closebridgingfinance.com. Hopefully, you've got a pen and paper. Your number again, Rory?
01962 885 927.
Great
you can always ping me an email, which is really easy. Just go to the website and call me, or just email or fill in a form on the site. I'd be very happy to help if I can.
Rory, if you can just drop an email to our team tomorrow, and they'll include your relevant contact details. Make sure we've got them up to date in the show notes, folks, so they go up on YouTube next week. You'll better see those and then connect up with Rory. Please reach out to Rory. Don't waste his time, but definitely reach out to him and talk to him about what you're about, and he would definitely be a man that will look after you. Rory, thank you for coming on. We've enjoyed it, haven't we, Ian?
We certainly have. Thank you very much. I would almost say yippity skips, as you learn something every day.
One final yippity skips. Ian, Richie, a pleasure. Folks listening, thank you very much for your time. I hope you've learned something.
Rory, thanks so much. See you soon, my friend. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Yippity skips, eh? Can't beat a bit of yippity skips.
You can't.
Good
That
stuff.
was good.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good. In fact, actually, he's gone now, but a few people did write in and say, can we get Rory back? But I don't want him to build himself up too much. Please, if you have enjoyed tonight's show, pop it in the chat box. Let us know any comments you'd like to make about whether you enjoyed it, whether you thought the content was good, whether you thought the speakers were good, whether you particularly like myself or Ian. Any one of us, let us know. Put it in the chat box, would be much appreciated. If you are new to development, and if you're interested to get a bit of education for free, why not, eh? Just go to the link, propertyceo.co.uk/SFR, propertyceo.co.uk/SFR. You can come and join us for a free half-day training, but grab it quick because that's going to be not run for much longer. So if you are interested in spending a bit of time with myself and Ian, we'll take you through a few steps on early stages about development so you understand it. We're off for a bit of a break now, aren't we, Ian? Not obviously between us, but as a show.
Oh, are we not? Okay, yeah, we are. We are back in September. So we're getting, yeah, you'll have to live without us for the whole of August.
You'll survive. You'll survive. Look, folks, we're back on Thursday, the 1st of September at 7 o'clock with the wonderful Raj Berry. Raj Berry is a good friend of ours here. He was actually a student of ours, but he's also the co-editor of YPM magazine, Your Property Network. And he's also a significant and prolific property investor himself, holds a lot of portfolio of HMOs, speaks around the country on portfolio of his HMOs and how to do them. So Raj is going to be here on the 1st of September. So please come and join us for that. Look forward to that. Please, if you are going to register, then register soon so you can get in just in case you can't get in for that show. And thank you very much. And if you are struggling to live without myself and Ian, the Open Door Show, please go onto YouTube, type in propertyCEO and listen to as many back copies as you would like to during your summer break. Shall we see what people put in the chat box? Let's have a look. Gabriella says, great show, great to see Rory and thoroughly enjoyed it. Stephen says, thumbs up. He says thumbs up. He hasn't got thumbs up. He says thumbs up. Liam says, terrific show. Thank you very much. Nice to have Ian back. Debbie says, great show. Great show as always, says Dan. Great values. Oh, great value. Thanks, guys, says Anthony. And Paulette says, excellent content. Thanks. Paulette, glad you enjoyed it. Glad the content was excellent. Have a great summer break. See you on the 1st of September. Cheers now. Bye-bye. Bye.